"Daddy, please don't let them take us." That was the first thing they said. My twins, screaming in the middle of the street, holding on to a stranger's leg. Their tiny hands were shaking. Their faces were red from crying. And that man, the stranger, they were clinging to, looked completely shocked. He froze like he didn't know what to do or who they were. For a second, everything around me stopped. The noise, the fear, even my heartbeat. All I could see were my children crying, begging a man they didn't even know to save them. Then reality hit. Marcus was still there. The man who had been threatening me for months. The man who said if I didn't pay today, he would take something I wouldn't want to lose. And now I knew what he meant. He was standing a few feet away, eyes dark, his voice cold. "Call your kids back, Henry," he said. "Before I really lose my patience." My mouth felt dry. "I told you I'll get your money," I whispered. "You've said that too many times," he snapped. "I'm done waiting." He took one step toward the twins. That's when the stranger moved. He didn't even speak at first. He just stepped in front of my kids and stared at Marcus like he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't angry. But something in his eyes made Marcus stop. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Marcus barked. The stranger's voice was low. "Calm. Leave them alone." Marcus laughed. "And who are you?" "Their father." The stranger's jaw tightened. Before he could speak, my twins shouted, "Yes. He's our daddy." And my world spun. I could barely breathe. People had started to look. A few cars slowed down. Marcus's face twisted in disgust. He spat on the ground. "Fine. Keep your fake little family. But next time, Henry, I'll take what's mine." He turned and walked away. When he was gone, my knees gave out. I didn't even notice I was crying until I felt a hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" the stranger asked. I looked up. He was tall. Dark eyes. Sharp face. The kind of man who didn't have to raise his voice to be taken seriously. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I just shook my head and covered my face. I couldn't stop shaking. The twins ran to me, hugging me tightly. "Mommy, we're sorry." Leo cried. "He scared us." Liam added. "We didn't know what to do." I pulled them close, my chest aching. "It's okay," I whispered. "It's not your fault. I'm here." When I looked up again, the stranger was still watching me. Not judging. Not angry. Just worried. We ended up sitting at a small cafe down the street. He bought warm milk for the twins and a cup of tea for me. I didn't want to accept it, but I couldn't say no. My hands were still shaking too badly. For a while, no one said anything. The twins were quiet, their eyes red. The man finally broke the silence. "Who is that guy?" I swallowed hard. "Someone I owe money to." He frowned. "He tried to take your kids." "I know," I whispered. "He said he wouldn't, but he lies." The man leaned forward. "Why do you owe him?" I hesitated. My throat felt tight. "It's not my debt. It was my ex's. But he disappeared 5 years ago. Marcus said someone had to pay, so he came for me." The man's eyes softened. "And you've been paying since then?" I nodded slowly. "Every week. Sometimes every day. I take small jobs. Clean restaurants. Carry boxes. Do laundry for people. Anything to keep him quiet." He looked angry then. Not at me. At the world. At the unfairness of it all. "What about the police?" he asked. "They told me to file a report. But Marcus has friends. If I go to the police, he'll find out. And I can't risk that. I can't lose my kids." I could feel my tears again. I hated crying in front of strangers. But I was so tired. Tired of being strong. Tired of pretending everything was okay. The man didn't interrupt. He just let me talk. It felt strange, like he saw right through me. After a while, the twins started to calm down. They sat beside him, drinking their milk quietly. Liam looked up at him and asked softly, "Mister, what's your name?" "Aiden," he said. "You can call me Aiden." Leo tilted his head. "You're really nice, Aiden. You look like a hero." Aiden smiled just a little. "I'm not a hero." "Yes, you are," Liam said. "You saved us from that bad man." I looked down, hiding my face. If I didn't, I'd cry again. When we finally left the cafe, I tried to thank him properly. "You didn't have to do that," I said. He shook his head. "No one should go through that alone." He took out a card and handed it to me. It was plain white. His name was printed neatly in black. Aiden Cross. And a phone number underneath. "If he comes back," he said, "call me." I mean it. I opened my mouth to protest, to tell him I didn't want to bother him. But something about his voice made me stop. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a promise. I nodded, clutching the card tightly. The twins waved at him as we walked away. He watched us until we turned the corner. That night, after putting the twins to sleep, I sat alone by the window. The city lights looked cold. The room was quiet except for their soft breathing. I took Aiden's card out of my pocket and placed it on the table. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't know this man. He could have walked away and ignored us. Most people would have. But he didn't. He stepped in. He protected my children. Why? No one does that for free. Not anymore. I touched the small scar on my wrist, a reminder of the last time I trusted someone. That someone was their father. He'd promised to take care of me. He'd sworn love, safety forever. Then he disappeared when I got pregnant. Since then, I learned one thing. When people say they'll help, they usually want something in return. So I didn't call Aiden, even though part of me wanted to. The next few days were quiet, but tense. Every time I walked home, I looked over my shoulder. Every time the phone rang, my heart stopped. The twins noticed. "Mommy, are you scared?" Liam asked one night. I smiled weakly. "No, baby. Just tired." But I was scared. Terrified. And then, on the third night, someone knocked on my door. Hard. I froze. It was late. Too late for visitors. The twins were already in bed. The knocking came again, louder. "Henry, I know you're in there." "Marcus." My blood ran cold. I grabbed my phone, hands trembling. Should I call Aiden? No. I couldn't. He didn't deserve this. But the knocking turned into pounding. And then his voice got darker. "If you don't open this door right now, I swear I'll take both of them." My breath broke. I turned toward the bedroom. The twins were awake now, holding each other, eyes wide. Tears filled my eyes as I whispered, "Stay there. Don't come out." I was shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. And then I remembered the card. Aiden's card. I stared at it, heart racing. He said, "If he comes back, call me." Before I could think twice, I dialed the number. It rang once. Twice. Then a voice answered, calm, deep, steady. "Henry." He remembered my name. Just hearing his voice made me break. "He's here," I whispered. "He's trying to break the door." "Please." "I'm on my way," he said. The line went dead. Minutes felt like hours. The pounding continued. The twins were crying now, clutching each other. Then suddenly, everything went silent. No more knocking. No more shouting. And then, I heard a new voice. Aiden's. Cold. Controlled. Dangerous. He said, "You need to leave. Now." I couldn't hear Marcus's reply, only a muffled sound, like someone being shoved. Then footsteps. Then silence again. A moment later, there was a gentle knock. "Henry? It's me. It's safe now." When I opened the door, Aiden was standing there, breathing hard, his coat slightly torn. But his eyes were soft when he looked at me. "You're safe," he said quietly. I nodded, but tears started falling before I could stop them. He stepped closer, hesitated, then placed his hand gently on my shoulder. "Hey, it's over," he whispered. "You don't have to be afraid anymore." But I was. Not of Marcus. Of the feeling growing in my chest. That small, dangerous spark called hope. That night, after Aiden left, I couldn't sleep. The twins had fallen asleep beside me, holding onto my arms. And I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, whispering to myself. Why did he come back? He doesn't even know me. I didn't have an answer. But deep down, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Safety. That night changed something in me. I don't know how to explain it, but when Aiden stood in front of me, facing that man without fear, it felt like the whole world had stopped just to let me breathe. No one had ever protected me like that before. After everything calmed down, I just stood there by the door, holding my kids close. My body was shaking so badly I could barely speak. Aiden looked at me with those steady eyes and said quietly, "You can't stay here tonight." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "It's not safe," he replied. "Pack a few things. You and the twins can stay somewhere else tonight. With me." My heart jumped. Stay with him. He was still a stranger. Kind, yes, but I'd learned long ago that kindness didn't always mean safety. "I can't," I whispered. Aiden looked at me for a long moment. Then he said softly, "Do you trust me?" I didn't answer right away, because I didn't know. But when I looked down and saw my twins hiding behind my legs, still trembling, I realized I didn't have another choice. We took a taxi. The twins sat beside Aiden, half asleep, their small hands resting against his arm. They looked peaceful for the first time that day. I sat in the front seat, staring out the window. The city lights blurred into colors. My heart felt heavy. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus's face again, the anger, the threats. Aiden must have noticed. He said quietly, "You don't have to explain anything tonight. Just rest." Something about his voice made me believe him. It wasn't demanding. It was calm. Safe. His apartment was quiet, warm, and clean. Not too big, not too small. There were books on the shelves and a faint smell of coffee in the air. The twins' eyes widened the moment we stepped inside. "Wow," Liam whispered. "It's so pretty." Aiden smiled a little. "You think so?" Leo nodded seriously. "You must be rich." Aiden laughed under his breath. "Not really. I just like peace and order." He led us to a guest room. "There are 2 beds," he said. "I'll get you some extra blankets." The twins climbed onto the bed immediately, giggling and testing the pillows. I stood by the door, unsure what to say. "You didn't have to do this," I said softly. He glanced at me. "I know. Then why?" He looked down for a moment, then said, "Because I've seen too many people walk away when someone needed help. I didn't want to be one of them." I didn't reply, because if I did, I'd cry again. Later that night, after the twins fell asleep, I went to the kitchen for water. Aiden was there, sitting at the table, a cup of coffee in his hands. He looked tired but calm. "You can't keep paying that man forever," he said without looking at me. I froze. "You don't understand. If I stop, He won't," Aiden interrupted gently. "Not if someone stands in his way." I frowned. "And who would do that?" He looked up straight at me. "Me." My heart skipped. I stared at him, unsure if he was serious. "Why?" I whispered. "Because it's wrong," he said simply. "And because your kids don't deserve to live in fear." His words hit something deep inside me. For years, I'd been holding everything alone. Working, hiding, pretending. And now this stranger was sitting in front of me, saying words that sounded too good to be true. I turned away quickly, my throat burning. "I don't need saving," I whispered. He said softly, "I didn't say you did." The next morning, I woke up to the smell of pancakes. Aiden was in the kitchen, flipping them carefully while the twins sat on the counter watching him like he was doing magic. They were laughing. Actually laughing. I stood there in the doorway, watching. It felt unreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. For a moment, I forgot about the debt, the fear, the nights of pretending to be strong. Then Aiden turned and smiled. "Morning. You like pancakes?" I nodded, speechless. He set a plate on the table and said, "Eat. You'll need your strength." The twins clapped their hands. Leo said, "Daddy makes good food." Then he froze, eyes wide, realizing what he'd said. I froze too. Aiden just smiled softly. "It's okay," he said. "I don't mind." My chest tightened. No man had ever looked at my children that way before. Not like they were a burden. Not like they were in the way. Just with warmth. The day passed slowly. Aiden went out for a few hours. I stayed with the twins, helping them draw, cleaning up after breakfast even though he told me not to. When he came back, I noticed a small bruise near his jaw. It was faint, but it was there. I frowned. "What happened?" He hesitated. "Nothing important." Did Marcus find you?" Aiden looked at me for a moment, then nodded once. "Don't worry," he said. "It's handled." My heart sank. "You shouldn't have gone near him." He sighed quietly. "You think I'd let him come near you again?" There was something in his voice that made me go silent. A promise. A warning. And something else I couldn't name. That evening, after the twins were asleep, I sat on the balcony. The city lights looked softer from here. I could almost pretend I wasn't afraid. Aiden joined me, 2 mugs of tea in his hands. He handed me one and sat beside me. For a while, we didn't speak. The silence between us was calm. Peaceful, even. Then he said quietly, "You love them a lot." I smiled faintly. "They're all I have." He looked at me. "You ever think about yourself?" I laughed softly. "Not really. There's no time for that." He didn't argue. He just said, "You should." I looked at him, at the faint bruise on his face, the tired lines under his eyes. He looked like someone who carried his own pain too, but never spoke about it. I wanted to ask him about it, but I didn't, because I was afraid of caring too much. Later, I went to check on the twins. They were fast asleep, holding each other like always. When I turned around, Aiden was standing at the door. He smiled softly. "You're a good parent, Henry." I whispered, I'm just trying. That's more than most people do, he said. Our eyes met for a second too long. Something warm passed between us, gentle but heavy. I looked away quickly, pretending to fix the blanket. The next morning, I woke up early. Aiden was already gone, but he'd left a note on the table. Had to step out. Stay inside. I'll be back before noon. There was also a small envelope beside it. Inside were cash bills. Enough to cover food and the rent I'd been behind on. I froze. My chest tightened. I didn't know whether to feel grateful or angry. When he came back later, I held the envelope out. I can't take this. He raised an eyebrow. It's not charity. It's peace of mind. I don't need your money. He looked at me seriously. It's not about money, Henry. It's about freedom. Something inside me broke a little then. Because he meant it. He wasn't trying to control me. He just wanted to help. And I didn't know how to handle that. That night, as we sat together again, I finally asked, "Why are you helping us?" He looked away for a moment before answering. Because I used to know what fear feels like. And I hated it. No one helped me then. So I promised myself, if I ever could, I'd help someone else get out of it. His words hit deep. I wanted to ask more. But before I could, my phone buzzed. A message. From Marcus. You think hiding will save you? You'll regret this. My blood went cold. Aiden saw my face and asked quietly, "What is it?" I showed him the message. He took the phone from my hand, read it once, then put it down on the table. "Let me handle it," he said. There was no hesitation in his voice. Just calm certainty. I stared at him, my heart racing. "What are you going to do?" "Keep you safe," he said simply. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, staring at the city again. I could hear the twins breathing softly from the next room. And all I could think was, who is this man? Why does he make me feel safe? And why does that scare me so much? Because maybe safety was the one thing I didn't know how to trust anymore. The days that followed felt strange. Quiet. Almost too quiet. The twins laughed more. They followed Aiden around like little shadows, calling him Mr. Pancake. Every time they did, he'd smile softly, but there was something behind that smile. Something heavy. I noticed it more each day. The way he'd stare out the window. The late-night phone calls he'd take on the balcony. The way his eyes darkened when he thought I wasn't looking. I didn't ask. Because peace, even borrowed peace, felt too precious to break. But peace never stays. Not for people like me. One night, after putting the twins to sleep, I went to the kitchen for water. Aiden wasn't there. The balcony door was half open. I stepped closer. He was outside, talking quietly on the phone. His voice was low, firm. "No, don't involve them. I'll handle it." Pause. "Yes, I know what I'm doing." My heart froze. He turned slightly, and for a moment I saw his reflection in the glass, tired, serious, older than before. Then he said something that made my chest tighten. "I can't let Marcus hurt another family." I stepped back, bumping into the doorframe. The noise made him turn. "Henry." I didn't move. He hung up and came inside, his expression unreadable. "How much did you hear?" "Enough," I said quietly. We sat at the table, the same one where he'd cooked breakfast days ago. The air felt colder now. "You knew him," I said. "Didn't you?" Aiden didn't answer at first. Then he nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "We worked together years ago. I didn't know what kind of person he was then." I clenched my fists. "And you didn't tell me?" He sighed. "I wanted to. But I thought if I told you too soon, you'd leave. And I needed time to fix what he did." I stared at him, my heart pounding. "You were part of his world." "I was," he said quietly. "But not anymore. I left when I realized the truth." I looked away, tears burning behind my eyes. "I trusted you," he whispered, "and I didn't want to break that." The silence between us stretched. The twins stirred in their sleep. Somewhere outside, a car passed, its headlights flashing across the window. Finally, I said, "Why help me, Aiden?" "Why me?" He leaned forward, his voice barely a whisper. "Because when I saw you that day, struggling to hold everything together, protecting those kids like your life depended on it, it reminded me of someone I couldn't save." "Who?" I asked softly. He looked down. "My sister," he said. "She was trapped too. She kept quiet until it was too late. I couldn't do anything then, so now, when I see someone drowning in silence, I can't walk away." My chest ached. I understood now, the distance in his eyes, the sadness behind his calm. The next morning, the twins woke early, bursting into the living room. dragging Aiden out of bed. They didn't know about the night before. They didn't see the guilt in my eyes or the exhaustion in his. They just laughed, asking for pancakes again. And he cooked for them, as always, as if nothing had changed. But something had. He was gentler with them, and quieter with me, almost like he was preparing for something. That evening, I found him on the balcony again. The city lights glowed behind him. He didn't turn when I stepped closer. "I told the police everything," he said finally. "They've been building a case against Marcus for a while. They'll move soon." My throat went dry. "So it's really over?" He nodded slowly. "Almost. Almost." He turned then, looking at me with eyes full of something I couldn't name. "Henry, when they come for him, my name might come up too. I helped, but I was still part of that world once. I might have to leave for a while." The words hit me like a wave. "Leave," I repeated, my voice breaking. He looked away. "I don't want to. But if I stay, it could put you and the twins in danger again." I shook my head. "No, you can't disappear, Aiden. Not after everything." He smiled faintly. "You'll be fine without me." I didn't think so. I'd lived in fear for years, but I'd never felt the kind of fear I felt now. The fear of losing someone who made me believe again. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made me flinch. Every time the twins stirred, I checked if they were still there. Then, sometime before dawn, I heard the knock. Soft. Steady. Aiden was already up. He opened the door slightly, spoke to someone in a low voice, then closed it again. When he turned to me, his expression said everything. "It's time," he said quietly. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat closed up. He walked over, knelt beside me, and said, "Take care of them. And take care of yourself, too." I shook my head, tears spilling. "You can't just leave us like this." He smiled sadly. "I'm not leaving forever. Just until it's safe." The twins came out, sleepy and confused. Leo rubbed his eyes. "Mr. Pancake? Where are you going?" Aiden crouched down, hugged them both tightly, and whispered something I couldn't hear. When he stood, his eyes glistened. Then he was gone. Days turned into weeks. The police called once to confirm everything was over. Marcus had been taken away. The threat stopped. The silence returned, but this time, it wasn't peaceful. It was empty. Every morning, the twins asked if Aiden was coming back. I always said, soon. Even when I didn't believe it. I went back to work. I tried to smile. But at night, when the house got quiet, I'd sit by the window, waiting for footsteps that never came. Then one evening, 3 weeks later, I heard a knock. Just like that first night. Soft. Steady. My heart stopped. I opened the door. And there he was. Aiden. Tired. Bruised. Smiling. The twins ran straight into his arms, shouting his name. I stood frozen, tears already falling. He looked at me and said quietly, "Told you I'd come back." I wanted to hit him. I wanted to hug him. I did both. He laughed softly, holding me close. "It's over now," he whispered. "No more hiding. No more silence." Later that night, after the twins fell asleep, we sat on the balcony again. The same spot where we'd argued, cried, and confessed without words. I turned to him. "You really came back." He smiled. I said I would. "Why?" I whispered. "You could have started over somewhere else." He looked at me gently. "Because home isn't a place, Henry. It's the people you can't walk away from." The words hit deep. I leaned my head on his shoulder. For the first time in years, I felt safe. Not because the danger was gone, but because I wasn't facing it alone anymore. Aiden wrapped an arm around me and whispered, "You don't owe silence to anyone. Not anymore." I closed my eyes, breathing in the quiet night. Maybe silence wasn't peace. Maybe peace was this warmth, safety, love.